Join me in welcoming Mariel Belanger.
I'm going to put this right here. It's not digital. But I made it with my hands. I made this. I'm going to talk about it. Okay. Let's see if I can do this right. Why Husko Halt Inchai Squeeze Tansen Until and come up in Sisulat. Hello, good day. My name is Mariel Belanger and I'm from Head of the Lake at Dry Creek, as Sienna introduced you. This is the PhD work that I've been doing. It is a lifelong process, a lifelong work. Being somebody who was raised in the digital age, I kind of like begrudgingly left the land because I was so enthralled with the computer. And I, like early on, I was like HTML code maker, like, making my own websites. You can find me all over the internet, it's kind of crazy. Storytelling, futurisms, and contemporary Indigenous educational practices as SMEMI. And I apologize to my daughter. She's a language speller, and I am not. And I corrected this somewhere else. Unfortunately, I did not correct it here. It's important that I know the spelling because there are words. And I don't know our words. I have a really hard time. I was told by Richard Armstrong that my tongue is anglicized, and so it has a hard time articulating the words. As mentioned, I was a graduate of the MFA program here as well as the undergrad program in the interdisciplinary performance arts part of the FCCS. Virginie Magnat was my professor, my supervisor, and I had some really good experiences here because it was in my own territory. And I find that it's important for our folks across the country to be educated in their own territories. That's a decolonizing practice. My intention was to be here right up and past to my PhD, but I was never offered one here. So I went to York, and then it was the pandemic, so I was able to get in as a so I went to York, and it was the pandemic. It was the middle of the pandemic. I drove across the country with my canoe, and 95 empty buildings is really creepy. That's what York was like, and they had a big falling out in the department, and so I didn't feel safe there. And one of my professors scooped me out. She rescued me and sent me to Queens, where I am at now. This is a piece that I actually created in 2012. And I was trying to think through our practice, but mostly I was trying to think through what it was that I was doing as a digital artist and as a storyteller of digital art. These were found art that I found on the internet, and then I transformed them in Photoshop. My research goal is to develop a creative approach that inquires into what Indigenous stories and songs can tell us about Indigenous ways of knowing and learning and future making. So in our future making, people say, oh, this is a past practice, but it's not. We're bringing forward important land-based knowledge systems when we bring our art with us as traditional artists. We're bringing future-making capacities with us. Why? Because we're using the material in a way that the non-Indigenous people don't remember how to do. A lot of people around the world have a marsh art practice. I started my marsh art practice when I was 16 years old with Barb Marchand and Lynn Phelan at the St. Cliff Native Theatre Company. We were in charge as summer youth to make all of our own costuming. We had to tan the hides to make the dresses. So I learned all of this practice through art. I didn't learn it at home with my mother, although I had an early beginning with dance and song because of my family and who I am through my family. my grandmother's Mary Abel, and my great grandfather, her father is Joseph Abel. And every single Nancy Turner book you know and you read. So I tried to buy up all of that knowledge, because my tupa, my great-grandfather Joe Abel, he shared a lot of his knowledge there. And I got a lot of it back, thankfully, through my art practice as a scholarship student. So I made the government give me all of my family knowledge back. That's what the Shirk Scholarship was about. That was about me getting money from the government to find out who I was as a sealed person. As a sealed person, we live with and amongst the land, the Timur, all of the important elements. We lived right there in these homes, these Tulimat homes. I don't have the words for it. I know what it is when I look at it, but I can't speak it to you. Tuktan, somebody help me out?
Tuktan is Tuli, and then Tuktanit is Tuli TV House.
Thank you for that. That's why I raised her. I don't mind being corrected by the younger generation. The younger generation, I mean, like, I used to, okay? I used to mind it a lot because I was colonized. I was raised by hard people who were raised by hard people who were raised by colonizers. You know, it was very difficult growing up in the reserve as a mixed person because I didn't belong anywhere. At the same time, I can make jokes about everybody. And everybody would be like, you're racist. And I'm like, yeah, just because you can't see the white in me doesn't mean I'm not. And they don't like that. They don't like it when you can make fun of them back and not look like them. But, so anyway, my intergenerational practice with my grandmother, my great-grandfather, that my mother helped to bring along because she introduced me as a child into their dance practices, taught me how to teach intergenerationally. My practice first goes through my children, the ones who want it. I have 3 children, they don't all want to be Siok, and that's a real hard reality. It's a really hard reality. So I spend all my time thinking about what does that mean in the future? Who does that affect? My grandchildren that are coming. They're going to be raised by people who are confused about who they are. They believe themselves to be Canadian because that's the economy that they live in. We are not our economies. But at the same time, they are successful in their practice, and I can be proud of that because they're successful. They don't need me. A big part of parenting is learning how to let go, and I have a hard time with that. And so sadly, as life brings a lot of trauma to us, but it teaches us how to work together and how to be better to each other, and this is the journey that I'm on. My daughter plays this real horrible game. Like, life is horrible enough, right, okay? And then she's playing this game, it's called Red Dead Redemption. Like, that just tells you something, right? This is her character. Chief Cheech? Can't remember exactly what it is. The character is a badass auntie. She literally has her own posse, and they play this game online, and over the last couple of years we've been kind of, it's petered out a bit because the pandemic has now gone and now people are back outside and doing their lives and stuff like that. But there was a time when there was this group of women in this horrible Wild West game where you could lynch people in this game. This group of women were protecting a man who was just walking indigenously. He was just playing the game, but he was a storyteller in the game. And so it made me acutely aware that I've been looking at the internet kind of in a negative light because of my own experiences. And a lot of scholars do this, actually, a lot of us, because we're not accustomed to social media. And when you organized with people that you don't know, and suddenly now it's like the biggest show. I'm talking about Leanne Simpson. In her book, she's talking about the I Don't Know More events that happened, and they had a hard time organizing because they didn't know each other on social media. And it's true, it's hard to organize with people you don't know, because then leadership, all of this kind of stuff. And so basically her interpretation of the internet was like, it's a crap place, man, we don't want to be there. We don't want to gather there, we don't want to do that kind of thing. But then the pandemic happened. And then these young people happened, and I just happened to be watching her. I was like, ew, why? He's lynching you. Why are you letting this happen? Why are you playing this game? I don't want to see this. And she's like, it's just a game. And I'm like, oh, okay. I should be looking at life as it's just a game. It's not something that I have to be so serious about. Capitalism is a practice. There is rules. There are things that you follow, and if you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you're going to get to success. It's when you try to put indigeneity in there that you get some of the, what is it? I'm trying to say here, roadblocks. So she's playing this game. This other player, his name is Tyler. He storytells these really cool stories talking about being on the land, in this digital land. And then I pay attention, because then I'm hearing her talking to her game players, and they're talking about being on the land. And, oh yeah, well, if you go over here, we can go harvest this thing. What are they harvesting? They're harvesting yarrow. Why? Because their digital horses need it. And so she's found a way to connect back to land and to actually learn, have a land-based learning experience in this most horrible of games that's based on the Wild West. And because it's based on the Wild West, it looks like here, the Okanagan. There's a lot of places in this game that looks like here. So I'm thinking very cheap now, which is funny, because I want to make a cartoon, I want to make an animation, and I can't afford it. So she's already got this game, and it's got the most beautiful backgrounds and scenery and everything like that, and all we need is to now tell the stories to each other in this environment. So it turns out nobody's doing this. Shh, don't tell anyone. Nobody's doing this. They're not looking at Red Dead Redemption and the different kinds of games that Indigenous people are playing. And that's kind of cool for me. I notice we all say cool too. It's cool because we're doing this work that is so basic to us, but because we're such a small knowledge base, that our knowledge is actually really, really specialized as Seal people. It's really specialized. It's not like Cree, which is across a great distance. It's a very specific knowledge. And there's 3 language groups that don't necessarily share language. 2 of them do, the Secwepemc and the Seal do, but the Tunaha have their own special language. We all share a certain area, and that certain area is one that had other folks as well, the Sinixt. But the Sinixt people, they speak in Sealchin, so they're like our brother and sisters. This is stuff that I was doing before, based on my master's and my undergrad work about identity and self in relation to the land. My ancestors, like Corey's, were associated with O'Keefe Ranch. Mine is Thomas Greenhow, and I thought that I was an English person because of him. It turned out he didn't even know who he was himself. They were from the southern Scottish area, but the northern English area. Turned out they were all mostly Scottish. So it made me think about Ancestry.com and what people are trying to do these days, and trying to bring forward that 200- and 300-year-old Indigenous person that the rest of their families abandoned. Who is Thomas Greenhow to me? Well, right now, he's the person that brought me back to that site, because I wasn't even aware of my own history at that site growing up. It was never talked about, even though my grandmother knew that that's where we should have been That's where we should have been raising ourselves up as ranchers instead of being kicked off and sent back to the reserve with a cow. I went there because of the reeds, and it taught me about materiality, and it taught me about why all of the waterways are being controlled by non-Indigenous people. And it's because they wanted to control the land, and we know this, right? They also wanted to control the people and the people in the place. Jumping back again into the digital, because I go back and forth. In 2015, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and that has been a mind explosion, because so many things made sense after that. And while we don't all need to be diagnosed, I can tell you my whole life changed. My whole life changed, and I started to get a better understanding of myself and have more respect for myself, and understanding that the work that I do is equally as important as anybody else's work. And because I have this special way of seeing the world that is neurodivergent, it may be even more so important, because capitalism, again, it's a standardization, it's a standard practice, and neurodiverse people just don't fit into it. We can't function in that way, and we shouldn't be forced to. Nobody should be. Like, we're functioning operating systems, each and every single one of us. We have our own internal operating system that is governed by the amount of chemicals that we have in our body. Our brains, our people, seal people, knew to use the brain to soften the hide. Had they known, I don't know, physics, metaphysics, smart people know how to do things. This is work that I did. Sienna was mentioning earlier that I worked with Dr. Sean Bergman. He is a built environment academic from Spokane and a canoe maker. He made the Sailors and Sturgeon Nose Canoe, which is a contemporary version of the sturgeon nosed canoe. This is me in the canoe in a performance that I did on the Spokane River, which was not witnessed by too many folks except for the people who were on the river. My intention of my performance art is that it's for the ancestors, it's for the trees, it's for the birds, because it's been generations since those birds saw that Tulimat teepee. It's been generations. They haven't had anybody to talk about. They didn't know where we were. We've been blended out of the scenery. Did you just hear that? Did I just cut out? Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. So I'll just jump into what this is about. This is my latest PhD work. It is, originally it was titled by Dr. Dolene Manning and Mary Bunch, who are from Queens and York. They're my saviors. You literally, you have to find your champions. And there are champions here at UBC Okanagan. I know I've had a few of them in this department. And so we created some videos that ended up being transformed in, something, Google Hubs, I think, something like that. Anyway, it's a little bit older tech, which is not old tech at all. It's still relatively new if you're not a tech person. But it's free. You need the VR glasses, and then you could go through and do a walk. And I have a little video that'll share some of that. And it features the talents of Hodari Newton, who's a black hip-hop artist, a scholar from Toronto. Currently, I'm working with Dr. Jennifer Wise in Victoria to work a show that we're calling Inheritance, and it's about Marion Dunsmuir and Marie Houghton Brent. Marie Houghton Brent was a half Okanagan woman from here, whose father was Colonel Hottenbrandt, who happened to be one of the first military men in Canada. And he actually went to like Batoche, and he was there trying to tell them, hey, chill out, you guys. These aren't the people that you want to fight. And of course, we know the history of Batoche. So it was interesting that this Syilx woman knew that history, and this woman had been erased out of her own territory. The men in her own community had erased her status because that's just also what happened at that time. You know, patriarchy is a real evil thing. Our women get erased. She actually brought herself back in history as the historian. So it was a really amazing story. These are some of the featured projects that have been broadcast. The Bannaking was on CBC Gem. I don't know if you can still see it there. It was a funny show. And I was the auntie who was also like the mean auntie. I get those kind of roles. I have a little, I'll show the trailer for the documentary that Sienna and I created. This is what I'm doing now. This is a Tule reed and cattail handmade handbag. It's my fashion statement. We're creating pieces with the help of my mentor, Wendy Hawks, who's from the South Okanagan, and working with Billy Joe Kruger and Catherine Pierre and a few others, as well as Callie Van Stone, who's a performer. She was here the other day. We're creating both the outfits and some of the implements that she needs for her performance that we are co-creating, and it's mostly hers. We're helping her and Mandy Strain, and that's going to be a part of our exhibition at the Kelowna Art Gallery next year, as well as an exhibition at the Oxygen Gallery in Nelson. And working with Wendy has been incredible because she knows the landscape, she knows the plans, and she can tell you the political history of what happened in specific places and what plants that we actually have almost forgotten how to use that are still growing, but only in small amounts. And so it's a big deal that we harvest in these public places so that people can see us again. Because that's the thing, is that people don't believe. People are like, oh yeah, there's a lot of newcomers coming into the territory, and you know, a lot of workers and stuff like that, and I'm out there, not even in a field, I'm in the cattails, and they're like, oh yeah, they're just Mexican workers down there, they're just working, and I'm like, oh guys, like, this is a cattail and Tule reed patch. You don't even know your plants? Like, come on, you guys. Anyway, I try to be on the land just to be political about it. This is how you can get a hold of me. That was the Tule mat teepee that was at the gallery in 2019 downtown in Kelowna. It was my very first Tule mat teepee, and I'm still trying to build another one because I sold that one after it was exhibited, and it's now inside the engineering building at Okanagan College in Vernon. And that's that one, and I have those little videos, they're like 6 minutes, so I'm trying to burn through this. Oh, X, never mind. So this is just a little compilation of the videos.
Decided to leave. When Sienna just.
So Sienna decides to leave on her own. That's the premise of the documentary. We were being evacuated. The fire was coming. I thought that it was farther than it actually ended up being. And then the other second video is a short story that I tell about the origin story, the earth diver, and then the third is just a little conversation where Sienna's talking about why it's important for her to be playing this game, why she likes to play the game.
I, to be honest, I doubted her.
My family wasn't believing in me and supporting me in that way.
I also don't like the air quality. Like there's literal ash falling from the sky. And I don't want to play no risk. I just want to play life.
That's it. I'm out of here. And I'm like, boy, it's fine. Everything's fine. You don't have to worry about it. Fire won't get here. The fire came. So she was right to leave.
I don't know you. You don't know me, but I'm here for you. And I was like, thank you so much.
Then this lady came. So it was very shocking and surprising and awe-inspiring to watch them together.
I had a really deep, profound connection with these horses.
Something beautiful came to me.
And we're gonna be screening this June 25th in Vernon at 6:30 p.m. There's no tickets, but there's only 65 places.
A long time ago, long before time was an issue as it is today, the Old One created the sun. The Old One said, there should be light. There should be light so I can see. And so there was. And what the Old One saw was a world of water and thought, there should be something here to stand on. Down floated a leaf to the Old One, who whispered to it to grow. The Old One stood. The Old One called to the water spirit and then created Turtle. The Old One then created 3 other creatures, one with fins, one with arms and legs and tail, and one with wings. The Old One then told them, you dive down as far as you can and bring back something we can use. So down the Old One with wings went, but they could not hold their breath very long and came back up gasping, clawing back onto Turtle as if their life depended on her. The one with fins went down as far as they could too, but still nothing. The Old One was disappointed. Finally, it was the tailed one's turn. They told the Old One, I will not come back without something of use. They took a very deep breath and dove down into the water deep. The tailed one swam and swam and swam, down, down, down. The water seemed to have no end. The others are waiting on the top for them. The others wait and wait. It seems like they waited a long, long, long time, and still nothing. The tailed one didn't come. The tailed one was losing power, so they began singing in their head. Kwanatan kukalamsa anayo hao tunstan sahaya nakukalamsa nakwanata. Coming to the end of their song, the tailed one reaches out, grasping into the darkness. The song ends, and a few bubbles escape. Finally, someone on the surface points out to the water. Look, there are bubbles over there. Sure enough, the tailed one floated to the top. One of the animals jumped in and brought them back to Turtle, and they carried the tailed one to the middle, barely breathing, hand clutching tight. The Old One opened up the little paw. Nothing. The tailed one had nothing in his palm. But faintly, under their nails, was thick, black mud. The tailed one must have pushed off the bottom of the ocean to make it back to the surface. The Old One scraped the mud from under each fingernail to make a ball. The Old One rolled it, and it got bigger and bigger. It got so big, Turtle offered her shell to be the foundation, and so the Old One put the ball on the turtle's back. In some stories, it is said that the tailed one was massaged into the earth to become the people to be as reward for sacrificing self for them. That is the story of the land and how our people were created from it.
Well, for me, it was the horses being able to hunt, but also being able to choose a girl character. Because in a lot of these games, it's mostly suited for men. And This one, especially with the anti-gang, we're a posse full of women who can do the things that men do. But for most of us, it's just like connecting on with the horses, being on the land virtually, and being deadly.
No time I wasted, I'm working on my craft. I'm working on my craft. I'm working on my craft. No time I wasted, I'm working on my craft. I'm working on my craft. I'm working on my craft. 6 in the morning, I'm in the gym, I'm killing it heavy bag when I'm throwing. I'm in the moment, letting my energy flow. Gotta let it all out, plus a little more. Ready for the road, mind fully focused. No distractions, phone down. Grind don't stop, every day I make it count. Let's go, champ, a couple of more rounds.
And the video with the canoe, that work is ongoing. It's now been exhibited in Toronto and in Queens at the Agnes somebody museum. You know, it's there, but it's under the VR dome. And so it's kind of taking its own life now, and that like I was saying, that piece I created, that particular one, the drone operator is Claire Dibble, and she was just learning how to use her drone, and so I've taken every opportunity to document my work that is meant to be ephemeral, where only I and the land experience it, because yeah, I think I like that audience. They're kind. Thank you all for listening.